time is it on the West Coast? Yeah, what time is it on the West Coast? No, it's okay, it's okay. Okay. Yeah, sure.
It's about the bite. Let the writers writing settle wrong from right. Conflict when the bullets fly. In the space of seconds, a life you cannot buy. Face the facts before you, face the simple truth. We're hopelessly outnumbered, it's tragic but it's true. Make your last formation, take the final road. Now it's time for endings, now it's time to go.
All right. What is up, everyone? Hello, welcome. What's going on, Crip? I'm sorry that there's so many other streams going on, sir. If only I could do something about that and stop them all. What's up, Lego Freak? How are you doing, man? Who else is here? Hello to Kathleen. Hello to Leshrak. What's going on, Sir Tifi? Hello, Nedowin. What is up, Nashpan? I see Mining Miner and the Buttonus and Burt's Bees. What is up, Gray Dybbuk? Hello, Brandon Man. What is up, Samaria? And I think I may have said hello to everybody. Yes, you only missed the first words. That's right. All right. Well, hello, everybody. It is good to see everyone, and we will get more people in here as time goes on. Let me get rid of, first of all, let me get rid of this, and let me get rid of this, and let me put on this. Okay. Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to see everybody. And I am going to be making a quick adjustment in a minute to the stream because I have somebody which I want to include. So I'm going to have him come in audio, and then I will get his video up on the screen. I have him for the game screen as well. But it is my very, very, very great pleasure to welcome in somebody. I just got this interview set up, I want to say only about 4 or 5 days ago. About a week ago, I got on my stream, somebody mentioned a game, Valiant Hearts, to me. me. And I had not heard anything about it before, but they know that I like games of this sort because of the whole story-based stuff. And so I went and I took a look at it, and I was extremely impressed, and I have a feeling you folks are going to be as well. It was a game, number one, that was set in World War I, and all that anybody ever talks about in games seems to be World War II, so that was neat. Also, the art style, because you folks know about my stuff with the graphic novels, so the art style really intrigued me, and also the music, which was beautiful as well. And so I ended up getting it and taking a look at it, and I immediately said, these are folks that I would love to get on the stream. So I am very, very honored to be able to have with us in chat and on my stream the audio and content manager from Ubisoft Montpellier, the audio and content manager for Valiant Hearts, The Great War, Yoan Fanise. Yoan, thank you so much, first of all, for being on. Super late for you, I know, but thank you for being with us.
Thank you, thank you.
I'm going to pop up your video so that people can see you as well. Just before we get started with this stream, and everybody in chat, please say hi to Yoan as well. While I'm getting you on here, I want to start by asking, I guess, a question which, as I said, you've probably heard a million times before, but I feel like it's important for other people to be able to, know what I know because I looked at this, which is the sort of motivation behind a game of this sort. What got you interested in doing a game of this kind? And what was it that sort of what was the genesis, I guess, of creating a game of this sort?
So at the beginning of the project, it was Paul Tumler. He's the art director of the game, and Paul did some artworks about World War One. It was I think it was three years ago, and I started to draw some characters, some environments, and it was very, very nice. It was already very wonderful, and but at this time there was not yet an idea about what the game would be and this kind of evolution. So it was pure art, and then Paul has to moved to help on the Rayman Origins and then Rayman Legends,
right?
And then 2 years after that, after I went, because I went to work in Singapore to work on AC3, and then when I went back from Singapore, I met Paul again and say, okay, Paul, what about your project you started about World War One? And Paul was very sad and said, no, it's on hold.
Oh.
And at this moment, I tried to convince him to like restart the project and make something really original with it, because his drawings were super intense. They were something really deep in the edge of his characters. Emile was there already. Emile was a prisoner, and there was the dog. There was Walt already. And that's we started with this. We started with those drawings.
I see. And so so he was kind of initially part of the genesis for it, but I remember reading in an interview that it became a very personal thing for, I guess, all three of you that were that involved with it because of personal history. Is that accurate?
Yes, exactly. In fact, it's 2 months after that, I started to do some research and to read many books and stuff about World War One, and one day I came to visit my grandma, and she asked me, like you usually. They ask you what are you doing, and so I said I'm starting a project on a World War One, and then she went to the bedroom and she opened a big closet, and she brought back, in fact, 3 big how you say in English, classeur, big stuff with many photos. I have one of them.
Like a photo album type of thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
this kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, that was all the letters from the family and friends to my great-grandfather that was in the trenches. So
Wow.
that was a sort of revelation suddenly to see that it was something, that happened to my family. So
My goodness. And is that something, I don't know if this is something we'll talk a little bit about later as well, but have you had a chance to show, relatives of yours who knew people from World War? I mean, obviously I assume they're passed away now, but some of them were children of or grandchildren of or knew people who had fought in the war, as you just said. Have you had a chance to show them any of this, or were they aware that you were working on this part of the project? I'm just curious about the game as a medium to communicate this, I guess.
I showed, for example, the final game to my grandma, but I don't think she understood very well what even was a video game.
Yeah.
So it's
I suppose. But that's neat, though. And so you felt yourself really coming to understand the event more through this, I assume. I mean, not just through the
yes.
history research you did, but through actually game development, right?
Yeah, yes, exactly, and that was something very intense to rediscover the past, the history, because even if at school we learned when we were young, we learned a bit about World War One. We sometimes we forgot that, and it's very interesting to rediscover it later, and with something very more intense, because you discover suddenly that it's something that happened to I mean, not only my family, but many families all around the world.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially in the sense that World War One has always seemed. I mean, I'm a college professor, so I teach English in addition to writing. And when I teach certain poems from that era, William Butler Yeats and people like that, everyone is so familiar with World War II, and it's not to say it wasn't a horrific war, but it was cleaner in some ways. I mean, there was a more discernible enemy. You knew who you were fighting, whereas World War I, first of all, pioneered a lot of the, if you will, the greatest hits of war, trench warfare and chemical warfare and so on. But it just seemed like such a, from reading accounts of it, it was such a mess in every respect. No one even knew why they were fighting it in a way. And it was all just very messy and ugly, even more than World War II, it seems to me. So I wonder, was that a challenge for you folks as you were putting together this story-driven, narrative-driven game? Was it a challenge for you to make it, I don't know, clear enough, discernible enough that some of the messages could come through without confusion, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that was something we wanted to show in a accessible way. That's why I think also the drawing are very simple, because we wanted to make sure that even young people until I think it's 12 years old, they can understand what we want to say, and they can realize what was the horrors of this war, even if we don't want to show them. We didn't want to show them as a leg cut or something very bloody.
Right.
We wanted to show it in a psychic way, to try to make you feel what they could have felt at this moment.
Yes, absolutely. And it's something that I'm going to want to talk to you quite a bit about in terms of the art style and so on. One last thing before we actually start playing, and then I'll have some game-specific questions. But so your side of it is not just the content, but also the audio, the music. So how did the music get put together? And first of all, and I'm sorry that I don't know this off the top of my head, who is the composer? It's one person, I assume. Who is it? Who's the composer?
In fact, that's something very special about this game, because I'm from audio initially, and when I started this project, I selected some tracks from different composers I know, and I started melting and editing different tracks.
Oh.
And in fact, I continue to do that all around the production, and then with the help of Emeric, that was after that the music supervisor. So in fact, I know that some people are a bit disappointed about that, but the soundtrack of the game is a mix of many tracks we selected and edited.
Was that copyright nightmare to get a hold of all of them? Or?
Not that much. Most of them are from a service called APM Music,
Okay.
and it's a famous website with many tracks. And what was we really wanted to keep control on every notes, every stuff we wanted to be inside.
Yes.
So I know it's a bit original, but we did it like I don't know, sort of DJ.
No, and I appreciate that very much, and I think Chad is going to appreciate it when they hear the music on this as well. And I guess the only other thing I'll ask as we get started then is, do you see that since you've been, as you say, you come from audio originally? It seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that games have put an increasing amount of emphasis on soundtrack and music, which is not to say that they didn't focus on it before, but they see it, it seems to me, as integral to the process. You know, I don't know that I would have had, if I were doing this interview 15 years ago, I'm not sure that I would have had just the audio manager with, you know, that position, or like somebody who is working exclusively on the soundtrack, the way that it seems to be now. And there have been a number of games, To the Moon and others, that really, really rely heavily on soundtrack. Does that your read also, that there's a lot more focus on it?
Exactly, and we saw that those recent years, and I think with this game, because maybe because I am from the audio, and suddenly I was making, you know, the story. We were a small team, so at the beginning we had to do almost everything, like trying to do some animation, some level design, some stuff, and that was good because I brought mood tracks. I was making the team, the designers, to listen to those moods when they were thinking about what could be the puzzle. So in fact, the design sessions were more, I was make them listen a track, and then showing them a lot of photos, of historical photos of those moments or those locations. And then we started to brainstorm about the puzzle, the situation.
Okay, wow, that's really neat. Yeah, I'm as you can tell, Chad, I was really looking forward to this interview. This is really cool stuff. Let me switch it over then into the game itself, and we can keep our discussion going. And chat, just so you know, so again, for those who came in a little bit late, this is Yoan Fanise, who's the audio and content manager for the Valiant Hearts, The Great War game, which came out from Ubisoft Montpellier. The official release was last week, I want to say. Is that right?
25th, I think.
25th, and has gotten a great deal of buzz, and I think you'll see why as I start to play it. So let us move over and do that. I think we have this popped up. And chat, I promise, as always, allow you folks to ask some questions as well, but I want to get into the game a little bit. And it's, at the moment, if I have this correct, about 1:15 in the morning in France. So I don't want to keep him on. I don't want to keep the poor guy who's already exhausted. He's going to be going on vacation not long after this, so I don't want to keep him on too long. But I really appreciate, you know, having some time. So, all right, let me fire this up then. If I can find where I put the icon. Yes, there we go. All right. Ah, yes, and there he is in the flesh. Okay, so popping this up, and on his recommendation, I asked him whether to use a controller or a keyboard, and he said it was originally developed for controller, so I'm going to give it a try, and we'll see how well I do with it, he said nervously, but we'll see how well I do. Okay. All right, excellent. All right, that seems to be working. Lovely. Alrighty. Okay, so I guess one of the things that is sort of first noticeable about this is people see it as about the art style. And so I want to ask about that because you mentioned that you wanted it to be something that even young people could, you know, absorb and get. But even so, I mean, this isn't cartoonish, but it definitely has a more childlike is not the right sound, but a simpler feel to it. Oh wait, I'm talking over the cutscene. Wait, I'll wait till that finishes.
After the assassination of Prince Franz Ferdinand of the
And then I'll ask that question.
Austro-Hungarian Empire, the German Empire declares war on Russia. Because of established alliances,
Hi, Takia.
France is preparing for conflict. A few hours after the announcement of the general mobilization, German civilians living in France are asked to leave the country. Karl is one of them.
Okay, so talk to me about why this particular art style that you folks chose.
The idea between this style of drawing was to make it minimalist, to make it simple, but to go straight to the emotion. I mean, there's no details that are not needed. So it's just the facial. You can see the facial expression of the characters.
Yes.
She's just one edge, and Paul is Paul draw everything in the game is drawn by one guy, by Paul.
Unbelievable. So has he woken up since the game was finished? I can't imagine he's got any energy left.
It was just the side. We were side by side all these 2 years, and he was on his the giant tablet, the big tablet with the screen inside.
Yeah.
And he was drawing all day long.
Yeah, my goodness. Is this, I mean, and I know you've sort of answered this, this feels like very much a labor of love game. I mean, I suppose all games are like that to a degree. But is this that? I mean, would you say it was something that became more than just a simple, maybe I'm overstating it. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
You're totally right. It was, I think, for the whole team at the end, it was something very special because this game has a meaning. This is a game that has something to say, and it's not just fun. So I think for all of us it was something important, and even if it's not the biggest game we did some Assassin's Creed, we did some other game before. I think it's the game that we are the more attached to it because we put ourselves into that game.
Yes. Wow. Now, there is narration, but the dialogue is just done essentially through basically word pictures, right? Basically.
Yeah.
What was the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, that was a challenge because we were a bit crazy at the beginning of the project, and we were accumulating like many challenges, and one of those was, okay, let's do a narrative game but without dialogues. So we say, okay, why not? We could do that. I was a bit worried at the beginning, coming from audio, like how we're gonna do a narrative game without dialogues. But then we figure out to do the pictures, the bubble with pictogram inside, and we started to work on a gibberish language, like blah, 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 blah. Something that looks like French, looks like German, looks like English, and everything. And in fact, I think that was better because it's a universal thing. I think everybody will not understand, but will understand that this guy is French and this guy is not from the same country.
Sure.
And it was good for us to reflect the non-understanding, how you would say, like the fact that people doesn't understand each other.
The confusion of no languages. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
being
exactly.
Able to understand. Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that was a big part of this challenge that we put to ourselves, and also that was a good way to put more emphasis on the music. In a way, by removing a lot of dialogues, we asked to put the music in the foreground, and in fact to make that the music tells the story and tell you the emotion instead of dialogues and words.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Chad, I'm going to just mention we have bad thunderstorms out where I am in New York City, so I am praying, please everyone else pray too, to the weather gods that we don't get taken out here. I'm hoping my battery backup system will hold if something happens, but let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope nothing happens. But okay. So let's see. Now, one of the things that I saw that people were talking about was also the sort of minimalist game mechanic side. That is to say, there's a lot of focus, quite obviously, on the story. And I personally have always gotten frustrated with the idea that something is only a game, in quotes, if it matches some arbitrary criteria, that it has to have X amount of movement of the controller or it doesn't count or something as a game. It's always bothered me, but I am curious about what you thought a game uniquely brought to this. Because you could clearly do this just as a graphic novel or just as an audiobook maybe or something. So I'm wondering what about the game side, obviously your own interest, but how is this suited as a game, do you think?
Yeah, the main idea for the gameplay was to keep it simple also, because we didn't want the player to have to overthink complicated, too much complicated puzzles, so that he would totally forget the story and so that after that we had to remind him the story. So that's, I think that was to keep the flow. We always wanted to keep a flow.
Interesting. So what was the most complicated aspect of that development then? It was the most complicated part. Hold on, let me make sure I get this right. That was a terrible throw. So what was the most complicated aspect, would you say, of getting the pace right? I mean, what was it that was the hardest thing to do as far as the pace is concerned?
Yes, exactly. I think when we started to do the playtest, the first playtest, it was horrific because many people were stuck into situations. So the timing, the flow was giant crap because they were spending a lot of time in one portion of the game that was not supposed to be like this. So we had to tweak a lot the situations to have this flow that is fluent.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you for letting me know, guys. I will turn down the music a little bit. Is my sound okay relative to Yoan? Because it's most important that you hear him, obviously. So I want to make sure I'll cut down the sound and so on. I'm sure he's incredibly upset that I'm actually thinking of turning down the game sound, but I do want to actually hear him. So let's see. So let me know if you guys can hear me okay, and him most importantly. My voice is also quite mighty-ish. Well, thank you, Sutiba. Yes. I'm wondering, I assume you had playtesters of different nationalities. Did you notice differences in the experience of, obviously, French playtesters that you must have had, and then, let's say, German playtesters, or if there was, was there a difference?
Yes, there were some differences, but we were happy that none of them, especially the Germans, they were not offended by the game, and they didn't think that the game was partial, because we really didn't want to have bad guys, good guys stuff.
Right,
so
sure.
that was really important for us to balance that. So we did many playtests with Ubisoft Düsseldorf, because we have the chance to have a studio in Germany.
Interesting. What? Let's see. Oh, okay.
So for example, if we can talk about Freddy. So Freddy is this character is inspired from a real man, just his name, that was called Freddy Star Wars, and that was a famous soldier that came from America to help France.
Okay.
So yeah, his name is based on this person.
Okay.
And we wanted to show many things, but at this period, that people, black people could not marry white people in some countries. So sometimes they moved to Europe to be able to marry. They are white. And that was a way to say that, also to say that Freddy was, for us, Freddy was already in France before the war starts, and he's part of the first group of people that are engaging for the Allies at the beginning of the war.
I see. Wow. And that happens. Hello, Aura. Hello, Common Rider. And was that something? So you had a lot of these sort of historical figures, would you say, that were in the game? A fair amount of them that are, inspired by originals, or not so much?
Yeah, we have a lot of inspiration like this, but we not necessarily put them into the game. This, for example, what I told you is not written in the game.
I see. Okay. I've got to get these guys tight. Right tight. All right. Ah, excellent. Oh, very neat. I'm mostly proud that I remembered what order you should start a band playing in. All right. And I'll get you.
Yeah, it's like a band. Drum, bass.
Yep. I was.
Anything.
I realized all along that's what I should have done. All right. Now I saved the guy. From what I can tell, I mean, certainly Yoan can answer that too, but I think there are choices. I mean, I guess that's a good question. Are there, since we've just started, are there choices that can be made that have distinct, branching storyline paths, or is it more playing through what happens, and you're sort of, you have to fulfill certain tasks to proceed in the story, but the basic story is in one sort of unitary direction?
No, the story is one. We preferred to tackle one solid story because we were a small team. Also, instead of branching in many scenarios and not be able to have strong stories for each of those choices that you could have made. So that was a choice from the beginning to avoid, even if we really like it, but to avoid the Walking Dead effect.
Yeah, right. I think everybody knows what we're talking. The Walking Dead effect. I've actually played some of the Wolf Among Us on this stream, so we're familiar.
Yeah. But this is really great. But this is huge in terms of production.
Yes, I can imagine. That's true. Did you have sort of, because you were a small team, were you able to sort of keep a hold on costs and so on? I mean, was there something that you went, I can't believe this cost that? I mean, obviously your experience with game design and other things as well, but this particular game with its unique style, was there something you said, I can't believe that, that this took what I thought it was going to take,
Yeah, but at the beginning we were about 8 to 10 people. But after that, at the end of the production, to finish the whole game, the whole scope, because we didn't want to cut in the scope of the game, so we had to ramp up to 40 people at the end.
I see. Wow. Whoops. That would be my terrible play. Yeah, the game, I believe. The game is on sale right now, but I mean, it's only $15. It's $14.99, so quite frankly, I mean, I guess I should reserve judgment. I suppose it's, oh, good grief. I suppose it's possible that we'll have this wonderful chat, and then, the minute Yoan leaves, I'll start hating everything about the game, but I think that's unlikely. I think it's pretty likely I'm going to like this, so I would say for that kind of cost, when you think about what other games cost that are, oh, geez, don't stop there, nope. No, that was a mistake. But considering what these other things cost, to me, something which is really, really artistically strong like this is worth something like $15. And in fact, I did want to ask you about that, actually, about the particular system, which was, I'm going to get this wrong, the Ubisoft. Is that right?
Yeah. This is our engine. So this engine is made in Montpellier here with us. So the whole team of engineers are here. So that's really, really useful for us when we want to have a modification, something special for the game. We could have like the split screen feature, the sort of comic panel. So to be able to have different cameras, so in fact we can point different cameras in the world and then put each of them in a particular piece of the screen.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that game is created is Child of Light also produced through that system as well? Okay.
Yes. We sent the engine to Montreal so that the team of Patrick Lourdes was able to make Child of Light.
Well, thank you for the follow, Boltzens. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Hi, Roix. Good to see you. We also have... good night, Leshrek. Thanks for stopping by. We also have a number of either game developers, either amateur or otherwise, too, and so they'll probably have a couple of game design-specific questions also. So is there something... so let me ask about... Let me not leave that idea about the game system. So what is the system? Because obviously Child of Light is very, very different from this game. So what is it about the system that allows you, what makes it so flexible? I mean, what is it that allows you to do as many different things as you've been able to do with it so far?
Yeah, because basically this, if we talk about the engine, this engine is based on scripts. So we have, in fact, in this engine you can do whatever you want. So in fact, as soon as you know how to script some, the language is LUA. So everything is in LUA inside, and you can just take a notepad and write whatever you want, if blah blah blah. Then so you can do pretty much everything. And what is really powerful is that it is real time. So you can drag a file from Windows, poof, inside the game while you are running the game, and it's all real time. So it's very useful also for artists to be able to put, they create a TGA file in Photoshop, they just bring it over the window of the game, and boom, that's it, the texture is there.
Wow.
And they can scale it, so it's all real time.
So, and Ubisoft, I gather, is very committed to this in general, obviously, not just since you guys sent it over to Montreal. I assume they're happy with the results on both Child of Light, which I haven't played yet, I have to say, and this game. So I assume they're pretty pleased with the engine itself as a method of development, yeah?
Yes, and in fact the different layer in Z are done in 3D. So okay, we say it's a 2D engine, but in fact it's a sort of a 3D engine because you can put the all the things in 3D.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I wanted to ask about that, and Chad, as I said, I'll speak to you. I'll ask you guys for questions in just a couple of minutes, I promise. But I wanted to ask about. Oh, of course, as I'm saying that, it completely went out of my head what I wanted to ask. About the content side. So I've talked a little bit about the audio side. Content presumably could be a very sizable thing. And since you were working side by side with the artists and everything else, I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit of the process. Were there things where they said to you, some of the artists say, we want to do this, or, you're working with some music, someone suggests something different? I mean, how do, I don't know, conflicts isn't the right word, but say differences of artistic opinion. In a small studio, how did you folks resolve those? I mean, who has the final say on, well, we're going to go this way or that way?
Well, at the end, if there were some difference between our opinions, at the end it was Paul and I that were taking a decision, and Paul on the artistic side and me on the audio and the storyline stuff. So if I thought that this sequence of a story was not bringing the right emotion, then we changed it, because I really wanted to make sure that the mood was respected, that we keep the mood flow was something that we have to stick on the mood flow, because it was the basic the basis of everything.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I also noticed these diaries. I started training at the military camp today. I can't help thinking of Carl, who's probably doing the same in Germany. The declaration of war has created havoc. I hope Marie and the neighbors manage to finish the harvest in time. One of the questions that I saw from chat, and I'm going to, as I say, I'll let them ask themselves in just a moment, but I did notice a question about translations, and I wonder about that, since this is quite obviously a multicultural game in its scope. So what's the sort of status of translations into different languages? Nedouin might be asking because, as I said, he's Russian, so he might be asking from that perspective. But what are you looking at there as far as translations to different languages?
So the game is in 7 language in terms of audio.
Okay.
And in terms of subtitles, I think it's 10 or 12. I don't remember exactly.
Okay. Was the translation handled? Like, do you folks have your own translation? Did Ubisoft, lend assistance? How did you folks work that out?
Okay. So we did in Montpellier the English and the French version. So we started mostly with the French version, of course, because this is our language.
Sure.
So it was more easy for us. But we did also the English version with different American people that we have in the studio. Uh, and also for the other languages, for the Russian, Spanish, Italian, and so we asked the translators to take some, how you say, freedom to adapt the text and to make it even historically accurate for their country. So, for example, if we talk about I don't know the amount of money that a French soldier would have each day, then we asked for the other countries to not just translate that, but to change it for what a Tommy would have of money, or for each country.
Yeah, wow. Which is a lot more complex, it seems to me, than the standard. Oh, thought I blew that guy up just a second ago. Which it strikes me is a lot more complex than the usual translation requirement. My father was a translator, so I'm interested in this because he always had to figure out a way to translate not just word to word, but he was translating poetry. So how do you translate, love from one language to another? How do you translate the Bulgarian word for hope, into English or whatever? So it sounds like you folks were concerned about sense and not just, the actual meaning.
Yeah, and we were concerned exactly about this, and also we didn't want all the information to be too much French. You mean French-centric, because we are French. The situation, this war was mostly in north of France, so we didn't want to have only French game.
I see. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I see some people are already getting ready to fire up some questions. So I'll start out with EXE fan, who I think EXE is also from Finland, if I'm not mistaken. But more serious question. What is your definition of a game? What classifies as a game for you?
You mean about this game?
Well, I think he might mean, I'm assuming he would mean game in general. He can clarify if I'm wrong. But I think he means, what makes something a game and not, in your mind.
That's interesting. I don't know if I can answer that quickly on this one, but I think I would extend the term of game to an interactive experience where you feel emotions. Maybe it's I don't know, because I think I would, but it's my personal opinion, I would remove a bit of the challenge thing, because for me video game is, in my opinion, sometimes too much on the challenging side, like you need to challenge the player, and not enough on the what do you feel, what do you feel, not just feel proud about succeeding. This is an emotion, but we have so many other emotions to feel. So I would. That's why in this game we know that we have a lake of a challenge in terms of complicated puzzles and activities. But that was not the point. The point was for us to make the player feel some emotions that sometimes you don't have in certain video games, and especially at the end. So I really advise people, if they want to understand what is Valiant Hearts, to play it to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let me ask from Boltzens, can you talk about the playable characters in Valiant Hearts and the decisions behind choosing them? You talked about Freddy a little. How about the others?
Yeah, so the others, Emile, the French farmer, obviously, because many people, most of the people in Europe were farmers, and Emile, it was interesting because he's an old man. And even if he's old, I mean old for this period, was 40, 50 years old, and he still has to go to war, because after a few days of war, there were so many dead that they had to call also the reservists, the old people. So that was to say, okay, everyone was involved.
Mm-hmm.
So that was for Emile, the French farmer. For Freddy, so I told you before that the reason why he's in the conflict from the beginning. Anna, she's from Belgium, and that was something we really want to tell. It's a sort of an homage to Belgium, because Belgium is a small country in the middle of Europe, and at every war, Belgium was totally they were going over Belgium, so they were ignored. It was like, okay, this country does not exist. We just run on it. So that was important for us to have a Belgium character, because that's pretty rare.
Absolutely. Since some could make the argument that Belgium was as responsible as anybody else for actually keeping things going. In some cases, Belgium was a big part of the stopping the German advance initially in World War I, for example.
Yeah.
So absolutely be part of it. Although I don't know whether United States people are really happy about hearing about Belgium at the moment with the World Cup result, but but it's all right. That's all right. We'll deal.
And you see, it's kind of funny because France will meet Germany tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right. It's a good thing that I did this interview now, or I wouldn't be able to get something from anyone. I have some German viewers too, so they would just be that wouldn't go over well. Better that I do it now before hostilities are created. Let me see. The other thing I wanted to ask about while we're waiting, and for people who are just coming in, I am interviewing Yoan Fanise, who's the audio and content manager from Ubisoft Montpellier for Valiant Hearts, The Great War, which I'm playing through as we speak. So I have been asking him some questions and falling over on a bridge almost. I have been asking him some questions, and you folks should feel free to ask questions as well, too. Let me see. I wanted to ask also about you talked about developing for the controller, and I'm thinking about what you just said about how challenging the game is or isn't, and how that doesn't want to be necessarily your focus. So I'm wondering about that. Were there a couple of core principles when you were designing the game mechanic part of it, where you said, we want players to feel that they do this? For instance, we haven't seen the dog yet, but I understand that the dog is a major part of this. So, how did you sort of think about the mechanics of this game relative to the rest of it?
So in terms of game design, I'm not the specialist of game design. It was Simon. But when we were brainstorming about the game mechanics, we were always thinking about combination. So when you throw an object, what will happen if you throw something that, all these mechanics that make it combinable. I don't know if it's a good word. You can combine all of them, and but we've always in mind the fact that we wanted to keep it simple, because we know that as soon as you get, for example, two objects in your inventory or in your menu, or in your pocket as a player, we wanted to avoid that, because after that you have this thinking of I should use this tool or this tool, or after that it's I think we might lose some people that are not the gamer, that are the mister that does just play some games sometimes, and we want to make sure that those people could play this game.
I see. Interesting. The other thing I wanted to ask, because you're a smaller studio, you're part of it as a smaller studio, and you had a smaller team, was that because sometimes people will say that there was a particular part of the game that was particularly sort of more focused on than anything else, and you could tell that the people who were interested in the kind of graphic side of things sort of won out over the people who were interested in other aspects of the game. So did you feel that you were always working together as far as making each part of it collectively make the game advance, as opposed to, if you follow what I mean, as opposed to one thing being more dominant over the others?
Yeah, sure. That was the big advantage to be a small team, is that we were always together we were in the same room, in the same open space, so you can talk to everybody, and that's something very, very cool and very easy, compared to huge productions where, for example, when I was in Singapore working on Assassin's Creed 3, there was a difference of 12 hours between Montreal and Singapore, so it was always by email, by all this stuff that make it not organic. So with this game we went back to the most organic thing, so we just talk to each other all the time, and everybody knows everything. So there's no, oh, I was not aware about that. You changed that part of the level, and I didn't know. This kind of problematic are not there yet when you're a small team.
And did you find that the how do I put it, the home office, did Ubisoft kind of leave you folks alone to do that? I mean, would you have pretty much essential autonomy with?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was something very nice from all the Ubisoft hierarchy, is that we were allowed to, I mean, almost making what we wanted with this game. So that was a big. I think we had a big chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it seems to have worked out. I think if they leave you folks alone, you put together great games. So that should be what matters most. Yeah, and I can see that if I had tried to do this on a keyboard, it would have been nightmarish. I think I generally am not a keyboard. I'm not a control guy too much. Maybe on an Assassin's Creed type game or something. But this is as far as a game like this, I would have had some trouble otherwise. I guess I also wanted to ask one other thing, and then I'll ask for chat to throw out some more questions. Chat, feel free, by the way, to ask questions as well if you have some about the game, the art style, or in particular the audio, the music side, and then also, of course, the content of the game. But I was also going to ask, it strikes me that Ubisoft is, for one of the big studios, is maybe, I don't know, among the more friendly of studios towards groups that are... Just get rid of this soldier. More friendly towards the more independently minded game. In fact, when I first was setting up for this, I almost mistakenly said the indie hit Valiant Hearts, but it's not an indie game, but it feels very independent in the best possible way. I mean, so is that? Am I again misreading that, or is there something to that idea?
No, I think it's true. And for the anecdote, it was funny because a few times during the show during E3 at Los Angeles, there were people that were testing the game, and they were really thinking that we were indie, and they didn't realize it was written Ubisoft on the top of the screen, and it was very funny because sometimes they said, and if your game is a success, maybe a big publisher will publish it, and it was very funny.
You're like, yeah, that's already taken care of, actually. That's funny. Question from Lego Freak. Any word of a Mac port of this game?
Honestly, I think it's a very good idea, and I will push for that.
There you go, Lego. You heard it here. He's committed to it. If it doesn't happen, no, I'm just kidding. But push for it. And actually, that makes me think of it. I wonder if is this a game that could function on, let's say, an iPad or an Android tablet? Is it a game which could be modified? I know the controller is really important, but I'm wondering if, because again, I'm thinking about the graphic novel feel of it and how iPads are, partially designed.
I'm not sure technically. I'm really not sure because the engine is, is really powerful. So we put a lot of textures and sound and music and a lot of data inside. So I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So it might be difficult to do. Hey, what's up, Z Zombie? Good to see you, Z Zombie. Okay, that makes sense to me. I'm jumping back and forth. I'm just the different aspects of the story as well. It's really, really neat stuff. For the narrating and the voice talent, controls would be wonky. Yeah, I know, EXE, I know. It probably would be, but I was just curious since there seems to be such interest in that. For the narrating talent, for the voiceovers and things like that, what did you have to do in terms of audio direction? Let's say for the narration. Obviously, most of it was gibberish, so you didn't have to worry too much about this problem. But there must have been some of it that was an issue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we still have the narrator voice that is really important, and the English version is recorded. I recorded an actor called Dave Petit. He's a Canadian from Vancouver.
Okay.
And he has this really deep voice. His voice is incredible, and that was very interesting to direct him. It was through Skype, of course, because I didn't have the time to go to Vancouver every time. But it was really a really interesting work with him to be what I was looking for was not to be sad, not to be very heavy, but to have a sort of tristesse retenue. I don't know the English word for that, but you know when you are sad, but that you don't want to show it. It's this kind of feeling of okay, I'm really sad, but I don't want to show you because I stay polite. It's a
Yes.
cultural thing. So
Yep.
this is this kind of emotion in the voice when you perceive that he's really sad, but okay, he doesn't want to show it. So I think it's even more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Hi, Philly. Good to see you. Bolson says, not a question, but just wanted to thank Yoan and his team for making this game. The world needs more thoughtful, beautiful games like this. Music is awesome, too.
Thanks.
So Z-Zombie asks, how long did it take from start to finish to make the game?
So to make the game, if I consider the first drawings from Paul, it's more than 3 years.
Wow.
And if we consider the production moment where we tackled it, it was 1 year and a half, something like this.
Okay. Wow. And pretty steady work, right? You folks were not doing anything else in the meantime?
No.
Okay. So it was pretty steady work. Do you have any situation, I've always wondered this, where do you ever get tired of the particular game that you're working on? Despite the labor of love, as I completely ignore the directions in front of me, in the game, sorry. But so, was there a point where you said, oh, man, I really do not want to, I mean, especially because of the subject matter, more with the World War, depressing World War One.
I understand what you mean. There was, for sure, there were moments where, because the subject is really heavy, and for example, I was reading books about World War One every day, every night, and when after a few months you realize that every night you read something horrific about a guy that will die, and it's sometimes you say, "Wow, next game, let's do something different," because it's very heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Did I just... Okay. Ah, the dog. Now we're going to get the dog mechanic, which I think will be useful, because it leads into something I was going to ask next, which is, so about the dog side, because one of the big jokes as an author, one of our big jokes is that if you can do whatever you want to human beings, but if you hurt a baby or an animal in a book, you're in big trouble with your readership. Even if it's done in the most a heroic way. If a dog gets hurt, if an animal gets hurt, boy. So I'm wondering what made you folks as you were working on it. I mean, I know you said that he approached you thinking about the dog was an earlier mechanic. Why the dog? What was it that was sort of in your mind?
At the beginning it was because of historical research, because we discovered that thousands of dogs were used during World War One to carry messages, to bring medics, to even bring cannons, to bring a lot of stuff, and there were photos about those dogs, and we were really surprised, and some of those photos were really touching, like a dog close to a dead soldier. So and that was something. We understood that the dog was important to tell the message of the craziness of this war, because a dog has no country. A dog doesn't know even what means country. So that was really interesting to put this kind of character in the middle of the scene, in the middle of those horror. This dog is so innocent that it was really powerful.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, again, I have a dog myself, and I'm thinking about how emotive, because you've mentioned a bunch of times during our chat, you've talked emotion, and you've mentioned the importance of emotion. And I don't know that I could think of, I know chat will kill me for this, but even more than cats, guys, I cannot think of an animal more emotive than the dog. I mean, a dog sort of is emotionally driven from the very beginning. And so, I don't know, it's just interesting because you had focused so much attention on that idea that it seems to fit very much with what you were trying to represent in the game.
Yeah, but a funny anecdote also is that depending on your culture, for example, we all the Americans that we met, they all said, please don't kill the dog. If you kill the dog, just what you just said. And in fact, in Europe, in France, for example, I mean, you know, people they say, "Oh, who is gonna die?" But they don't think about the dog. I don't know. It's a funny difference.
That's funny. Now we're starting to get cats greater than dogs. I know, Lego. Yes, yes. Oh my goodness. It's a really, really interesting mechanic. More dependent on people than cats. Cats great. I know. I figured you wouldn't be happy about that, Pav. Yes, Pav is from Poland. I was mentioning before to Yoan that we have a pretty international audience. So, interesting. Yep, that's not predictable at all. Okay, so.
And in fact, maybe we can talk about the setting and the period, because, for example, this level is Neufchâtel. It's in north of France, and this moment was really important because it was the first time the British Army was firing on Germans. They have brought all their cannons
Oh.
in near Neufchâtel to push back the Germans, and on this day, on this location, that was also the first time they were the Indians, the Gurkhas, the Indians from India. So it was important for us to show that even if it's snowy, there is snow everywhere, it's really cold, and suddenly you will discover some Indians, the Sikh Indians with the turban. So it's really something we wanted to show to people.
That's really interesting. Let's see. Another question, more than a compliment. Thank you for making a game that has dogs and showing how they were used to save lives in the battlefield. That's actually true. I can't think of another game that does that. So there is something to that as well. Let me see. There was a question that I missed back here. Oh, yeah. EXE asked how much research was put into the game regarding World War I. I think Yoan actually answered that already, but I'll give him a chance to show off how much they did again. An enormous amount, right, of archival and personal research on World War I believe, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah. We read many books and letters, of course, all our family letters, and also after that we had the help of the governmental centenary mission, because after that we met the official centenary mission in Paris, and they helped us with historians. So we worked with historians to make sure that everything is accurate in the game.
Okay, interesting. I seem to be not understanding what I'm doing with my poor dog here.
I think you have just to run on the left when it goes up.
Yeah, that part I did, but I just, for some reason, I can't seem to take control of him and move him over.
You need to, to latch, just in English, to just pull the trigger, and then you need to run on the left.
Let's see. So, right, this one, I did that. Oh, run to the left. Oh. I was thinking I had to do something with the dog. Gotcha. Yes, that makes more sense. Gotcha. Much more logical. I thought I had to do some combination thing with the dog as well. Total playtime, Philly wants to know. This is always difficult because it depends, but...
it depends. It depends, of course, because it's puzzle. So, but I think the average is about 8 hours.
Okay.
The whole walkthrough.
Yeah, and I noticed, and I assume it doesn't seem like you have tons and tons of collectibles and achievements and all that, because I gather that's not really the point here.
We in terms of collectibles, what we wanted to do is not to have thousands of them, but to have unique collectibles. So that's why each collectible has a specific drawing and a specific story about it.
Right, and each one of these is specific to the individual character, right? So this is Emil's particular items you'll see in a minute that I'm looking at. These are just the items that only he can collect in his story, his side of the story?
No. The collectibles are just a collection.
For everybody, okay, all right. So any character, okay, gotcha. Good, okay. All right. Oh, good. For a minute, I thought I'd lost my dog already, and I thought we were going to have a chat about how we weren't supposed to get rid of the dog this early. Oh, very neat. Yeah, I agree. It is a good time. I've been surprised at times about what... Okay, that was dumb. I should not run into some obvious weapons. Okay, I should back up and go here. So one of the things that I've played, for example, Transistor. I don't know if you know, it's by the same folks that did Bastion, and which was very, very short play time. And normally that doesn't bother me. That seemed almost a little bit too short. And you've talked quite a bit about the flow and the pacing of the game. So I'm wondering about that. Was there a moment where you had to edit stuff out of the game? You know, things that you wanted to include but had to cut them out because it just wouldn't work?
Yeah, of course. We always have to cut some part, but this time it was only a small part of it. For example, there were some puzzles that were too long, or you have to walk or run too many times in the same area. So sometimes we have to make some puzzles more simple because the time spent to resolve them was too long.
Mm-hmm. So there's no we can't expect to see any director's cut or anything, can we? Of this game at some point in the future.
No.
Okay,
No.
this is the game as it was.
Yeah, sure. And this is a full story.
Is this the kind of game that you could see? There we go. Is this the kind of game that you could see some sort of a maybe a DLC is the wrong term, but I mean a sequel or something that would be sort of continue the story or would sort of work in the same world or not?
Of course, it depends on the success of the game. But yeah, I think we would be really happy to do a sort of... We don't know what it could be, if it's a sequel, if it's something else. We start to think about it now, and we are really happy because the way people are enjoying the game is really good. So yeah, it gives us a lot of energy to think about everything that we could do with those. It could be those characters, it could be other characters.
Yeah, I mean, because it definitely has had the response. No, I don't think there's going to be a DLC to change the dog to a cat, EXE. Very funny. Why would you go to a clearly inferior animal? No, I'm just kidding.
No, and I think in my opinion, a DLC, because the goal is to tell a story, to make you feel emotions, and I'm not sure a DLC format would be long enough to tell you a deep story.
Right. That's true. Oh, that's what he's asking me to dig. Thought he was.
You have to find
there we go. I got it.
bone,
Yep. I got it.
a giant bone.
Critically important. Don't try this at home, chat. Only I can take 6 minutes to find an obvious bone. That's right there. There we go. So, and about the audio side of things, again, back to the music as I'm listening to it, it certainly doesn't feel like some amalgam of other songs. I mean, it certainly feels a part of, sort of an integral part of the game. Did it take you forever to get it sound this organic? To have it sound this, tied into the game?
Yeah, that was a big, a really tough job, and it's I have to thank Emric because he's the music editor and music supervisor, and he did he spent days and nights to edit those musics, to make them you always want the music to start at a very specific moment, because this is when the music has to start. And after that, he added some ideas about when you dig down, when you go underground, then you want to filter the music, so you only have the bass. So this kind of ideas was really, really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this digging mechanic is something which I didn't. I love the idea of using his spoon or his shovel to do all this stuff, but this mechanic didn't come through to me. I mean, the dog mechanic I knew about, and these other the sort of gibberish speech and so on. Oh, he wants a hot dog. Oh boy. But that digging mechanic is something I hadn't thought about. Oh no, he got stuck in the barbed wire. Oh no. Oh, minutes earlier. It's the switch quickly to the other side.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Their next objective, take back Port Arthur.
And here's the guy with the incredibly deep voice that you referred to. Hi, Lawkeeper. If they were to make question, Bert Spees wants to know, does the studio have any plans for other, whoops, that jumped out of my screen, have any plans for their future games, other wars, or perhaps a completely different story? I suppose that question would be not just related to this game, which we've already talked about, but new games that you have on the radar screen that you're thinking about.
Yeah, but sadly I cannot answer this question.
You can't talk about it. You can't talk. I promise we won't tell anybody at all. We'll never say.
I'm really sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. That means you were on the right track, though. You did a good job. You confirmed that we touched a nerve of some kind.
Yeah, but that's all good news.
Yes. And by the way, you can notice from the reaction to chat at what almost happened to the dog. So this confirms what we were saying about anything happens to the dog and we're in trouble. Let's see. You're in line for Anime Expo. Very nice, Law. That's awesome, man. Okay, let's see. We won't spread information on the internet exactly, Pop. Let's see. Yeah, and the other thing that wasn't immediately clear was about, as you said, let me find the actual term. There we go. I wanted to look at the actual term for this because I wanted to... No, not the crucifix. I know about that. Yeah, the Garwal rifles, Indian troops deployed by Britain in the Middle East as well on the European front. Did aspects of the game as you were designing it, the original storyline, did that alter substantially at times when you found that the story you wanted to create would have been in conflict with the actual facts on the ground? I mean, if you were having to choose between great story or historical accuracy, I'm wondering where you guys decided to go.
Oh, that's a good question. But I think I don't remember. I don't remember a moment where there were a conflict between the historical and the scenario and the script, because the script was, in fact, because we made basically we made the script on top of all those historical moments. So first we took all those dates, we picked up dates and locations, and starting from those dates and locations, we draw some paths so that the characters could follow those paths and cross each other. So it was a puzzle to make the game. So that's why I think after that, because we started from an historical point of view, we didn't have a conflict with the story.
Interesting. Because it would have been the thing that I would have thought would have been the biggest, minefield, if you'll pardon the unfortunate pun in this story that I'm doing right now, but to be able to do that. So that's good that it actually worked together. It actually makes me wonder, and maybe I won't make you answer this because it's not fair, but it makes me wonder whether or not a European studio was really the studio to do it. I don't know that an American studio, or frankly a Canadian studio, could have handled this. I mean, obviously it might not have the same emotional resonance, but also, I mean, they couldn't go, an American probably could not go to their great-grandfather, I mean, unless they had emigrated, and say, what do you remember what your father told you about World War I, or whatever the case may be. So maybe it had to be something from a European studio to do it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Maybe what was nice to be in France, of course, was to be able to go there. And for example, for the sound, for the ambiances, I went to this region, to Verdun, and it was just to be there, to see those trenches. I mean, now it's just giant holes
Yes.
made by explosions, and you really feel something, and I was happy to be able to capture some sound, the silence of those locations, so that in the game the ambiances are the real one, are the one from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a good friend. Oh, that's what he's asking for. I just have to figure out how to get it to him. I did it right. Amazing. Okay, 2, 3, and 2. I've always believed I was in Germany about, I guess it was 12, 13 years ago, and I went to Dachau. And I'm half German myself, and I had never experienced. It's the kind of thing that I think if people are able to go to a concentration camp, it's something, it's not fun, but I think it's important. And feeling, going to this place, which has now been made basically into a museum, and feeling the sort of resonances of a place like that, feeling the ghosts, if you will, was very startling to me. And obviously that's World War II, but I imagine it felt a little bit the same way. You could feel the ghosts a bit, I guess, is what I'm saying, with something like that, as it sounds like it was the case for you with the World War I stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And you think, of course, that under your feet there is probably many bodies, because there were so many people that were buried, like, because the explosion, the mud, it was a big mess of mud and corpse. So I think, that's something you think about when you are in this location.
Yeah, interesting. You just had the Marvel Heroes CEO in your chat, Durbin? Do you mean, oh my goodness, Dave Brevik? Congratulations, Durbin, it's great. With over 30 people here, being a professor, it feels like this is a class. Well, I hope it's an enjoyable class, Bertz. I never really know what to make of that. I hope that it's an enjoyable one. I'm learning an incredible amount, so I'm having fun with it, but I'm biased towards educational experiences too. And actually, that leads me to a question about this, which is how much you wanted to teach and how much you wanted to send an emotional message, because those things are not always connected. They can be, but not always.
Yes. I think our first goal was to try to make a great story with emotions, but after that, for me especially, the second idea was to, if we can teach people some stuff about that period, so that they understand what happened, and so that they remember this moment, that would have been a nice stuff also. So we were really happy after the first playtest sessions, when even the youngest people, they told us that they really learned a lot of things that they didn't know, and now they were curious about this, and they wanted to ask their family, their grandmother, what happened.
Yeah, that's and I mean, which is really powerful, and it's an example of. I'm reminded sometimes when you teach, one of the things that is suggested is that people often learn best when they don't know that they're doing it, and they're just experiencing something, and then the experience, they have learned something without realizing it. And I wonder if that's an answer partly to the question I asked before about what a game can do uniquely. If you're having fun with a game, you may not realize until you get to the end of it the impact that it had on you learning about this war. And maybe that's part of what a game can do in this context.
On April 22nd, 1950.
Yes, the dog survives. Thank you, Yoan, Z-Zombie says. Right.
Oh yeah, we would not have killed the dog so soon.
I was going to say, so whose fault is it then if the dog dies? Because you're the content manager, so technically it's your, it's your your responsibility, right? So, or is that are you the one whose job it is? If the dog dies, are you the one that we blame, or who do we blame?
If it happens, yes, you can blame me.
Okay. Hi, Adamaniac. Good to see you.
The Baron. Yeah, I see a question about they are hunting the Baron von Dorf. Yeah, because von Dorf is a German officer. Is a German officer that Freddy is looking for. I cannot say why, but Freddy is really looking for this Baron von Dorf.
So we got a little possible vengeance track maybe going on as well. A dog dies, the cat takes its place. No, Aura, no. The dogs of war. By 1918, the Germans had employed 30,000 dogs. The Allies employed 20,000. Main breeds deployed were German Shepherds, Doberman Pinschers, and Bouviers. Wow. Let me just remind everybody, by the way, if you want to ask a question, just type in question in all caps, and then go ahead and ask your question as well. We've got probably another... I would say probably another 10 or 15 minutes, and then I don't I'm happy to have Yoan stay forever, but I also think he's going to fall over on his keyboard because I have made this poor gentleman stay up much later than is rightfully the case. So whenever you need to head off, please tell me, Yoan, because I don't want to force you to stay forever. How was the interview? It was great, except he never let me stop. But this has been really, really wonderful stuff. Let me see. There was one other thing I wanted to ask, which was, oh yes. 4 as opposed to 1 or 2 protagonists. This is, I assume, just because you wanted to get different perspectives on the war, but did you consider at the beginning mainly making it a sort of one-person perspective, maybe with the dog as well, but the one person that sort of goes through the war, or was it always going to be 4 storylines?
I think, yeah, it was from the start. It was a different point of views because we didn't want to be partial. We didn't want to have the good guy and the bad guy. That's why we have to add different point of view, of course, and for sure the German point of view. So Karl is really giving you another point of view, and the more you go on the game, the more you play Karl. So at the beginning you don't play Karl, and at the end you play a lot of Karl. So it's like an arc. You start more with Emil, and then the more you see the other side, and the more you understand that, okay, they are all humans, there are none of them want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. You're right, a war that nobody wanted to fight, and no one really knows how it happened, in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Pull that up. Okay. If I've done that at all properly...
Yeah, for example, you took the Canadian dog tag. It was important for us because we couldn't create characters from every country. So we tried to put objects and collectibles from all of the other countries that were involved. So the Australia, Canadians. There were so many countries in the north of France at this moment. So that's why we wanted to talk about them.
You got to be able to get that as well. That's right, because it was a world war that no one had ever fought before. And of course, at the time, the interesting thing, of course, for people in chat who don't know this, it was called the Great War, not World War I, because they assumed it was the war to end all wars. No one knew we would have to number them and have a second one, my heavens. And may heaven help us if we ever had to have a third. Cambridge bot. Okay, yeah, thanks, Cambridge. I understand. I'm in New York City as well, as you know. So yeah, I saw the stuff with the heavy storms. So hopefully that will not come into play for us. Okay, now I have to figure out.
And for example, if we talk about the gas, because this level is to talk about the first gas attack. In fact, we say, okay, the Germans, they used gas and that was really bad. But when you do some research and when you dig, you discover that in fact this is the French scientific that created those gas, and then they were like agree to not use them. There were a convention that say, okay, we have those kind of weapons now, but we should never use them. So yeah, that was not as oh, the Germans, they use gas.
That's interesting. Yeah. I wonder if the now that I think of it, I wonder if the French would be as if the yeah, I suppose if some people in France would have been not so happy to learn that little bit of news.
Yeah,
But truth is truth, though. I mean, so
yeah.
yeah, exactly. Great meaning big, not great meaning good. God no, but certainly great meaning the war to end all wars. And it was rightly said that the lights go out in Europe because the assumption was that Europe, the world civilization had advanced, and then this war happened, and well, there was some question about whether that was the case. Oh, interesting. Uh-oh. Have to be careful, I'm going to hurt the dog. That would be very bad. There we go. I have to say too, and I waited to make sure that I heard, I've heard essentially nothing bad about this game except that the complaint that was raised before, which is, well, how much of it is a game? Some of these puzzles are surprisingly robust, it seems to me. I mean, they're certainly not incredibly complicated, but the idea that it's just, as you said before, the sort of Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us are much more interactive stories than something like this, where the mechanic is a big part of what goes on here. So, I don't know. I think that again, I don't know that it was a criticism, but I think it was a little bit understated, quite overstated, frankly.
Yeah, and then I think and to understand, and what we wanted to achieve better. Was to blend more the story and the puzzles, because I know that the puzzles, they feel a bit not correlated to the story. They are a bit on the side, so you have the story and you have those puzzles. So yeah, this is something we tried to make better, but I know it's not one of the success.
Okay, move that, I think, in the right way. Let's see. There we go. I'm sure my fiddling with a pipe spewing out chemical gas is no problem at all. I'm sure I'm doing that totally well.
And there is a hint system. If you feel stuck, there is always a hint system.
I saw it. I'm resisting. I'm resisting as much as I can. Yes, indeed, Aura, yes. Yes, indeed. Let's see. One of those that I got like this. Ah, right, yes, which only does that. I follow. Which means I have to do one more like that. That means I can do that. Okay. And I think the only other thing I wanted to that I wanted to ask. Let's see if I got that right. I think I did. Let's see. The only other thing that I wanted to ask was, oh. Yes, I started to think of something, and then I looked over and kindly saw a suggestion made to me, which I should have thought of already. That makes sense. Oops, wrong one. There we go. So, for some of these, were there moments where you had to slow down the, how to put it, the twitchiness, maybe? Can you even climb up on that? The twitchiness of it, in other words, the speed with which you had to traverse a level. Did you ever think about doing it? I mean, you have a few examples of that earlier in the game, trying to avoid the falling shells and so on, but it seems like more of it is more sort of the timed puzzle method. And I'm wondering if you had an aspect of it. There we go. I think I did that right. And I'm wondering if there was an aspect of it that you focused more on the puzzle rather than the speed that you finished the puzzle in, if that makes sense.
I don't think I get.
I guess my question is this. Well, like for example, earlier on, I was having to dodge shells that were falling and avoid machine gun fire by jumping into a trench and sort of timing. But it seems like more of it is less about timing.
Sequences. Yeah, we wanted to add. Of course, we didn't want to have only puzzles and low-pace moments. We wanted to spice it up with action sequences, like during World War One. There were long moments of waiting before the battle, and suddenly, bam, charge! You get a battle. So we wanted to reflect this kind of line of low pace, and then suddenly, boom, 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 it's an attack. You have many things to do. So we wanted to show that also. And later in the game, you will have some with musical moments. So we selected some tracks, some historical tracks that we really like, and we put in synchronization, some shells, some obstacles, and it was really fun to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Buttonus asks. There we go. Huzzah! I can actually learn occasionally. Buttonus asks, are there natural stopping points in the game, or is it one that's important to dedicate a chunk of time to for story involvement purposes?
I think I would suggest to play the game in two chunks, to have like for example 4 hours in 2 nights.
Okay.
I know some people did it in a one time, but I think it's a lot because it's like around 8 hours.
That's a lot. That's a lot of time to sit in one place. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, as I'm dodging out shells. Oh, my pleasure, Bertz. Thank you for stopping by. All right, here's an example of a speed sequence where I'm running away from the chemical gas. Okay. Alrighty, so, which means that, based on what you just said, I'm probably, I don't know, I guess I played this for a couple of hours, so I suppose another hour of me or two me playing. Will it be obvious when I reach the relative halfway point? Would it be clear to me?
You mean the halfway compared to the whole game?
Yeah, like compared to the overall playtime of the game, in other words...
Yeah, because what is obvious is we divided the game in 4 chapters, so there were 4 chapters, so if you play, for example, chapter 1, chapter 2, then, the
I see, okay. Yeah, and I think we're still in chapter 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're still in chapter 1.
Okay. There's no going out that way. Yes, thank you, Sir TV. I'm glad that you found my use of, There we go. Glad you found my use of, twitchiness so original. That's what I should have done to begin with.
Like you have to go on the right.
Yeah. Yep. Just wondering about what he was finding there. Alright. Aha! Good. I thought there might be a collectible there. I was worried that I was going to dig down into the ground and I was going to be in trouble. I assume there's no point in the game where you can get so stuck you make a mistake that, other than one that kills you, obviously, but a mistake where there's no getting out of it. I mean, there's a way that you can correct the problem, I assume.
Yeah, always, of course. And with the hint system, if you feel stuck and you just want to move on, you can just call the pigeon. So we use the pigeon because it's also something we discovered in our research, is that there were thousands of pigeons used to bring letters from a point to another. So that was something very interesting.
I see. Okay. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Electromite. Yeah. From the start, we use this language of, comic panel. I don't know in English how you say, but to frame stuff inside the picture, and
Yes.
it was really dynamic and make us. And that was a good way also to explain what happens far from you, because this war was also the war where the artillery was far back from you, like kilometers back, and there were no very good communication way. So that's why they all had a precise watch. And when there was a secret message that says tomorrow at 7 a.m. I mean straight 7 a.m. you charge, because there will be the artillery will fight. There will be the rolling, I don't know in English, we'll say the rolling thunder, the rolling artillery in front of you.
Right.
So to not kill your people, you have to be really, really synchronized.
Right. Whoa. Dig. Whoa. That was close, chat. Thought I was going to lose the dog there. Never mind what happens to Emil. What matters really here is the dog. Whoa. Wow.
Her name was Anna, a Belgian student living in Paris. She was hard on the trail.
I love the three-dimensionality of it, though. I mean, the fact that you could get the car coming out of the background like that, and it feels very organic within the style. I really do love the ability to layer it in that way.
A German squadron spotted them.
Do the key prompts change depending on the controls used, or are they always PlayStation prompts? That's something he'd have to. I do not know the answer to that myself. I'm using a Logitech. Whoa. Yeah. Gamepad.
Yeah. We didn't try with Logitech devices, but normally if you use an Xbox controller, there will be Xbox icons and so on.
Yes. If I had heard this music, I wouldn't have asked you if how much had been composed separately, since this is rather famous. Oh, with the bombs too. Wow. This is really impressive, Yoan. I always admire. I had a similar feeling with the Banner Saga, where looking at what it was they were attempting to do, they delivered it so well, and it just strikes me that you guys did. I mean, I don't mean to come across as fawning over it, but you just did so well in delivering what clearly you had intended with the game, and I don't know. I'm very, very impressed with how that was done here. So kudos to you and your entire team.
Thanks. I will transmit all your messages to the team tomorrow.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And you, now, I know you're going on this vacation, a well-deserved one. How long are you folks going to be out of the saddle, as it were? Are you going to have a few weeks to kind of relax and let the game just sort of breathe and then get back into your next development cycle? Or how long are you giving yourselves to relax?
Yeah, it's just just 2 or 3 weeks.
That's it? That's all you get, huh?
Yeah. There is a lot of things to do also.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, I suppose. Oh, right, on material that you're not at liberty to talk about.
Yes.
Yes, Chad, I just died right before the end. Yes, I did. Well done by me. This is what happens when I foolishly drive into the shell falling. How long did it take you to get the synchronized, get the audio synchronized with the sound
these
of this?
sequences. So in the game, there are three sequences like this, and it was quite complex in terms of technical issue because the game has to stay really synchronized with the music stream. So there are a lot of technical issues.
Yeah, so it must have just been, it looks like it would be very technically challenging to be able to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that.
And in terms of audio, if we just talk about audio-wise, I had to, to time stretch because those classic tracks, this is the Hungarian dance, and you have to stretch it to at least match with a click, sort of a click. So it was really complex to time stretch.
Yeah, I can imagine. But it's so, but it does make such a difference in terms of the pacing. Okay. In terms of the pacing of the game. I'm clearly doing this wrong. Nope. Alright. I better go this way and actually figure out something to actually blow that up instead of just wandering to it. There we go. A stealth part. Is it safe for me, Electro, to ask an Ubisoft employee about forced stealth? Is that a safe thing to do? I just got done playing Assassin's Creed 3, and there have been some slight... People were slightly troubled, I guess I would say at times, about whether people felt... There we go. The people were sometimes troubled about whether or not the stealth was forced in a way that it shouldn't have been. So in a game like this, I assume that you were anxious not to make the stealth seem, I don't know, obtrusive somehow, or not. I mean, you have to do it, but it doesn't seem like it's incredibly complicated to manage it.
Yeah. Same thing like the puzzles. We wanted the stealth mechanics to be really simple and obvious, even for someone who never played a stealth game mechanics.
There we go. Good dog. Question: what's with the lack of eyes with characters? I don't know that I noticed that, EXE.
This is an interesting one. In fact, so Paul Tumler, the art director who drew everything in the game, decided to hide the eyes of all adults characters because this war was created by adults, and they didn't want to see the truth of what they created in a way. So they were a bit like ashamed about that. As the dog and the children's in the game, they have eyes because they are innocent. They don't know. They discover on life. They are totally innocent in that war.
Right. That's really interesting. So it was a conscious design decision to sort of base it, to not have the eyes, basically.
Yes, and that's something that was really hard and challenging for the animators because in animation you always put a lot of emotion by the eyes, and we said okay, but sorry, they have no eyes, so you have to give emotion without this.
Right, except for, as they point out, except for the dog. It does have eyes, and
sure.
Which is important itself. Also, Certifi wants to ask, does the timeline of the game, now it's April 22nd, mirror to real-time events, or was it all written fictionally? I assume that these things were connected with real-time events timeline-wise, right?
Yes, all dates and locations are linked to real events.
Okay. I think I did this. I think he may have already gotten what I asked him to get, and I was... the periscope to observe enemy trenches without drawing fire. Ah, yes, I see. You're curious since when our American action hero fell to the car, his cap fell out and he didn't have eyes, yes. Absolutely. And then I guess, let's see, the last one would be... Oop. Let me just wait for these guys to pass around. No, I don't need help. I just don't want to get caught. I guess the last question about something like this would be, you guys obviously delivered this at sort of the $15 price point, and I'm always curious about this. This may not be totally your area, but how much input does your team have into pricing and what qualifies? Because a game like Transistor plays actually shorter than this, and yet it was $5 more. Other games are more expensive or less expensive. So I'm wondering what was sort of the determining factor for you folks about what you wanted to come in on. Is that all corporate, or did you have any say in that?
No, in fact, we didn't have. We suggest price because we don't want it to be expensive. We want it to be for a large audience. But after that, this is a business decision in HQ.
Right. And without getting into great detail, are they pleased with so far with the results? The response that they've gotten financially. You don't have to get into details, but are they?
Yes,
are they happy?
we don't have. I don't have the number yet because it's just 5 or 6 days the game is launched. But from what I feel from the emails I got from HQ, they feel really happy. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Because the more of this the more of that happens, we can get games of this kind, the better. And good for them for trying something which is not the standard. Again, for a studio which seems to spend all of its time. Whoops, I think I did that wrong. For a studio which which gets sometimes a lot of grief from people about certain things that it does, they deserve credit for being willing to give people some free reign and some creative license to work. So
and this is a big part of it is due to Yves Guillemot, the CEO, because he validated the project at the beginning. We made a prototype, a very small prototype, and with a video, and we said, okay, this is what we want to do, and I remember that Yves Guillemot was really. He was enjoying this. He was really happy about this project, and I think that was an important thing. So that he really support us. He said, "I want this game. This game has something to say, and I want this in my lineup."
Yeah. Well, let me end with with a personal question about your role in gaming and this sort of thing as well. Did you always want to work as an audio and then content guy? You said you started in audio. What brought you to games overall, not just this game?
That's
that's a 20-hour question, right?
Yeah, I come from audio, but from movie. I was a sound editor, so I was editing sound for movies, and then 10 or 12. I don't remember. 12 years ago, probably, I moved to video game, but it was not intended. It was because they had needs in making Beyond Good and Evil video game. So that's why I jumped into Ubisoft Montpellier to help on Beyond Good and Evil, and that was my first video game.
And the rest is history.
Yeah, and after that, Peter Jackson's King Kong and the rabbits. I did the sound for the rabbits.
Oh, really?
Yes, I invented the rabbits.
I did not. That's funny. I have a good friend of mine, Norman Cates, is a lead compositor at Weta Digital. So and worked on scenes on The Hobbit 2, Iron Man, King Kong, and so on. So that's interesting. I've learned quite a bit from him about. I have a creative writing class where I talk about. Different aspects of the creative process from different fields, and so he's talked a little bit about what it was like from him working with that studio. So, would you want to? I mean, do you want to stay in the game and audio development side of things from this point forward, or would you still like to be working on movies at the same time?
Oh no! I'm really happy to work on video games. It's the intensity of things that you live when you bring all those pieces together, at the end, because it's so complex a video game that you can only see the result at the end of the production, and when you see all those pieces melt together, and then wow, you have I remember one playtest session we had close to the end, and that was so intense. The players were so not so happy, but were so so sad
Why not?
that
Why were they not?
yeah. So that was really a great moment, and yeah,
That's
I,
interesting. Yeah,
I,
I'm glad to hear that because sometimes I've heard people talk about being, liking a particular field or liking a particular subfield of something creative, but they'll say, well, it's sort of like working on this thing, and you get the impression that the other thing is what they would really like to be working on. And so it sounds like to you really have sort of embraced what gaming does. And I guess that's something probably which 10 years ago you might not have seen as viable, right? I mean, gaming now, working in games seems to be as viable as it would be in movies or anything else. Is that fair to say?
yeah, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that yeah, video games will exist forever now. So
Yeah. No, this seems pretty locked in. I think you got a good audience with that as well. All right. Well, Yoan, I don't want to make you stay, longer watching me stumble my way through, but this is really enjoyable. It's also, and I mean, I should say to chat, it's an enjoyable game just as a game. I mean, I'm enjoying the puzzle side of it, but the something about the combination, and I think that's something which you talked about a lot tonight. Emotion and tying together the pacing of everything is really, really great.
yeah, yeah.
So it
And
it,
and I
it
think
works.
yeah, it, I think the best way to play it is I think in two chunks, chapter one, chapter two, and after chapter three, chapter four, because those two chunks are different because the war evolves in a way, so it's interesting to play those two moments.
Okay, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish up chapter 1 and chapter 2 this evening, and then on the next session, solo session, I will finish that up on my side as well. But I want to let I don't want to make him go, but I also it's now absurdly late, so for him,
Yeah, I
so
need to sleep now.
yeah, no, so absolutely, Yoan, I am so grateful to you, also to Kevin from Ubisoft, the public relations guy, for setting this up as well. This is a wonderful game that I'm very, very impressed with, and I'm always happy to sort of support real art in this, and I think pretty much everybody on the Twitch stream could pretty much say the same thing. So thank you
Thanks.
so much,
Thank you.
and please
Thank
convey
you.
all the great, again, all of our positives to the team, because I think you guys really had a winner here, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Yoan. Chat, can we get some love as well? Yes, some thanks from people as well as we wait. Yeah, that was cool. All right, give me a second here while I turn that off. Awesome. Huzzah, good stuff. Okay, very, very cool. Thanks again to Yoan. I hope everyone really enjoyed that, because I did. I had a great time. I really love people who can talk articulately about their craft and their art as well. But I love people who are able to do that, so that was really cool. All right, folks, so I'm going to take now just about a 10-minute break, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to continue, and I think, since this is what he suggested, we're going to do exactly what he said. I'm going to play through the first half, so I'm probably closing in on the end of chapter 1. I'll do chapter 1 and chapter 2, and then the next solo session, which probably won't be till next week, I will finish up with chapter 3 and chapter 4. Okay, sounds good, Mining. Didrik, I don't know whether the game has a lot of replayability or not. Probably not, I would say, because once you've seen the story and the puzzle design, you've seen it. But I think it would be interesting to see how well this holds up to picking up details, because I think the details themselves could really be something as well, that you might not get everything. Like, I'm sure I've missed a couple of collectibles, although I was trying not to, but